Okay, welcome back. And a really big welcome back to Ilse, Nell from Riskflow in Johannesburg. I think probably takes the prize this year for the longest journey to get here, 26 hours on a plane. You may remember Ilse was in in Helsingør last year together with Dani doing a talk on this application they were at that time working on. And now she's here to tell us about the release of the cash flow manager. Ilse.
Okay, so I'm here to talk about our cash flow optimizer, the why, what, and how. And as Morten mentioned, we launched the individual version. The cash flow optimizer has a version for individuals and a version for business. And we launched the individual version in August. And the whole idea when I convinced myself to come and demo the business version is that by now we would have been live. I'm very glad about the Russian talk about, the 2-month project that became 3 months and became 4 months and became 6 months. So we're ready to launch on the 1st of November, and it wasn't much of a hassle to get the app deployed on the Android store, but on the Apple store, I don't know who the Apple fanatics are in the room, but they're giving us a hard time, and apparently you have to do things like test beforehand. That's, there's a couple of reasons why we're not ready yet. Okay, so why did we develop the cash flow optimizer? And this is, I think, where I should stop joking. A quarter of the people in South Africa are unemployed. And the government has now admitted that their attempts of job creation have not been successful. And it's been pointed out not only by South African and African analysts, but by people who've done studies for other third world countries, that the only chance of us getting rid of this unemployment scourge is if we develop entrepreneurs in the small, medium, and micro enterprise environment. However, a stat that I found 2 days before I arrived here is that 5 out of every 7 businesses formed in 2011 has already gone down. And the reason for this is financial literacy. You don't need to be literate from a point of view of having been widely read in order to start a business. But unfortunately, if you do not understand the very, very basics of finance, then regardless of the type of business you're in, whether you have a little stand selling bananas or whether you're starting a bed and breakfast, you need to be able to understand the very, very basics. And it's not just a South African problem. So when we started developing the app, the first thing that we looked at was a quote that we found from Robert Kiyosaki. I don't know who of you have read the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad, where he explains that businesses don't understand that cash flow is the lifeblood. Somebody gave a talk earlier this year at one of our universities that said, an income statement is an opinion. It's what I think my profit is going to be if everybody pays me on time and if I can source my goods at the price that I've planned. But cash flow is the reality. And without cash, you can't continue running your business. Even if you have a beautiful balance sheet and you have a fantastic income statement, at the end of the day, if you spend more than you're getting in, that's the reason why small businesses fail. So about 6 years ago, my boss, who is the CEO of a whole group of companies, had started a spreadsheet solution, which he believed, was going to be the answer to the problem. But I'm not sure he's going to forgive me. So if it is taped on, I'm sorry, but I'm going to show them now, what was Don's idea of a fantastic solution that's easy to use and user-friendly and all the rest of it. So let me see if I can show you. So this was, as you can see, maybe version 36 of their attempt to have a very user-friendly solution. And it's user-friendly from the point of view that, there's some really easy parameters that, just imagine you now want to start a small stall selling local fruit. And of course, you will have to know things like what is the inflation rate, what is the cost growth factor plus inflation, what is the dividend policy of your banana stand, what is the business tax rate, and what tax you'll be paying on dividends. So, amazingly enough, this didn't fly. I don't know why. I would imagine anybody with a banana stand would say this is exactly the thing for me. Especially, when you get to things like completing your balance sheet, which we all know is very easy, and then moving to even easier concepts, such as the income statement. And after 6 years, we realized this might not be the solution. This might not be the thing that's going to get small, medium, and micro enterprises to start believing that their finances are going to be very easy to do. So, right, I'm going to close this. And I don't know, did you like the user interface? No. Well, funnily enough, neither did anybody that we showed it to. So we said to ourselves, right, what are we going to do? And the first thing to us was the user interface. It's not going to be as sexy as Sophia, so don't worry about it, Italian table. But it was important for us to concentrate on touch devices. So I'm going to demo it on a laptop, but it is a touch device. And we decided that instead of users having to do what you just saw, in other words, do you want to save your data and then oops, this drive's full, we decided we're going to use a proper database and that we'll host it on the cloud. And that instead of using formulas in Excel, that we'll actually do the calculations in APL. And then we decided definitely to try and keep it simple and stupid. So at that point, I think it's important to point out that if the app was live, I would just be sitting in the audience as a very proud owner, and my programmers will be giving the talk. So I was told I'll be warned when there's 5 minutes to go. So I'm going to try and talk until there's 5 minutes to go so no one can ask me a technical question. Right. How did we do this? We developed the front end basically in HTML5. We used C# for the data server and Microsoft SQL for the database. And then for the calc engine, we used Dyalog. So the question is, why didn't we do everything in APL? And people think maybe it was because we didn't want to put all our eggs in one basket, but the reality is I only had one egg to put in a basket. So we decided, let's try and do the APL, but where we believe the power of the language is, which is in the calc engine. Last year when I was in Helsinki, I tried very hard to convince some of you to send me some of your surplus APLs so that we can do more of it in APL. I hear the ex-mice, now musketeers, are ready for deployment, and Paul came and whispered in my ear this morning saying, if you want them, try and pay them UK rates. So we will continue with just using South African developers. One of the things we did say to ourselves, though, is we want everybody working on this app to be young, because we're trying to target a young audience. If I tell you that I am the youngest member of my executive, you'll realize, and if I tell you that I'm the only one without a chartered accountant degree, you'll realize that trying to use internal resources wasn't going to be a good idea, as they thought that the spreadsheet was a stunning solution. So we focused and had an entire team of people under the age of 30. We also tried to make sure that the front-end developers didn't know anything about finance. Because in order to try and to make it intuitive, you can't let somebody do the development that says, oh, but surely people will know this, and surely, you know, this will be logical to them. So where the lady who did the front-end graphical design, I think, is it the user experience nowadays? It's no longer user interface. The user experience was done by a young lady who she's turning 21 at the end of the year. So, okay. When we launched CFO4i a couple of months ago, to our embarrassment, as soon as more and more people started using the system, it just grinded to a halt. And as developers go, of course, everybody was blaming each other. You know, the front-end guys were saying, oh, it's the database. The database guys were saying, oh, it's the APL. The APL guy was saying, I can run it on my machine and you'll see how fast it is. It's only when you link it up to the server. So we tried all kinds of methods to speed it up. And one evening, over a pizza and a couple of beers, I was talking to the database people, and I said, one of the nice things about APL is it wouldn't have been a problem that we are forecasting and saving data for 60 months, because, you know, if you use a vector, whether it's length 2, length 60, length 600, it won't really slow down the speed. And the next morning, they phoned me and they said, we have a brilliant idea. What was the name of that thing? And I said, oh, vector. And they said, we're going to save the data as a vector. So what they did is, instead of 60 individual elements, which is forecasting for every single question, the 60 forecasted results, together with all the assumptions that we make for financial intelligence, they were going to save all of this. And then they said, and you know what is the most brilliant? We're going to put commas in between it. So you can imagine when we were trying to read the data, you know, it was actually recreating a vector from a vector by doing 59 catenates. Anyway, so we landed up, instead of having 180 individual fields per question, and there's about 100 questions, we managed to get a 8,000% reduction in response time. Okay, so our target market, obviously the small individual and the small SME, but what is really our dream is that we will have some visionary seeing this and realizing that this is a grudge app. You know, it's not a game, it's not fun, especially when you see the graphs and you realize you're going to run into trouble. So what we're really, really hoping for is that there'll be somebody at the World Bank or the Bill Gates Foundation who'll say, this is the solution, and take the solution and move it into Africa, and let's try and get people financially literate. Incidentally, you know, Mark Shuttleworth is a South African. And we were trying to get to him, and we had to speak to his intermediary, and they were all American. So we were trying to explain to them, we just want to get to a fellow South African, you know, to explain to him what it is we wanted to do. But, you know, we didn't manage that. Okay, so I'm going to give you a demo of the app. But I think before I do it, just to cover myself, so I thought I'll just show you this. This is on Tuesday night when I was trying to think which parts of the app I should show you. And as you can see, there was still a domain error in line 5 of one of the APL programs. So if something goes wrong, I also have some video clips of the launch where we know everything worked, and I'll be playing those. Okay. So here it is. This is the landing page. You'll see that this runs on a number of devices. So this is the view if you're running it on a laptop. And then This is what it looks like when you're running it on tablet and a phablet. And this is what it looks like when you're running it on a phone. So you're only going to be seeing the laptop version. Okay. So, basic idea is that we keep a little bit of stats on everybody using it, not to spam them to death, but really to try and get an idea of the different industries and the different age groups of people using it. And when you buy the app, you can either buy the personal version or you can buy the business version. And then we put something in which we thought was really sexy, and that is you can also have somebody else share their version with you. So you'll see it at the bottom here, and I'll demo it in a while, that another company can let you see their results without being able to edit it. So for instance, if we're running a small group of entrepreneurs like we're doing next week in KwaZulu-Natal, everybody will be sharing each other's information. So as we go through the 2 days of the training exercise, everyone will be able to see how everybody else's cash flow is improving as the 2 days of exercises continue. So I'll be loading the business profile. And the idea is that never mind how financially illiterate you are, that you'd be able to complete just these 10 or 15 questions. So let's see, what will I pay myself? And what will I pay the person working for me? Oh, let's be fair. And I have a little money in the bank. And I have some bananas. And it's going to take me 3 days. By then we're ready for banana salad. In order to demo it, let's forget the fact that I'm actually a banana salesman. Let's pretend that I'm actually running some accounts from my clients. And so I have a small little store, which is worth some money. And you get the basic idea. You really, really don't have to understand that at the moment I'm completing the balance sheet. You just answer the questions. So I've also got a loan for my delivery truck. And my sales, let's think positive. And every year that'll grow by 3%. And I have a 50% markup. So I can get the banana from my uncle, and there we go. So these are the few basic questions. And once you've answered it, come on, be nice. Why is this taking long? There we go. So that's it. I've completed my couple of questions. And here is my cash flow projection. And as you see, things are not looking too hot. Here's my income statement. And there's my balance sheet. Okay, so things aren't looking too healthy. And the basic idea is that one can now start explaining to them the reasons why, even though they're selling their bananas on a daily basis, why within 2 years, or in this particular case, within a couple of months, there's going to be big trouble. So that was the quick start, and now we can actually start looking at things in detail. So these are my sales. As you can see, when we initially start training people in financial literacy, you don't want them to get overwhelmed by the fact that you're projecting into the future. So initially, we show them just the current month. And then as we continue, we allow them to actually start seeing what's going to happen in the future. So if you have loans, for instance, that you're busy paying off, me go and show some of that. There's my debt, and you'll remember that I had a vehicle loan. So you can see over here how we then illustrate to them how the loan will be paid off. For some of you, it's most probably difficult to believe that people tend to think, if I've paid off 2,000 Rand a month, and I make a quick sum, and I had a 30,000 Rand loan, that in 15 months, that'll be it, that's the loan. So it's very important for us to be able to illustrate that despite the payment you're making, this is how slowly your loan is being paid off. So if you scroll through to the future months, or you can scroll year by year, and you can see the effect that you'll only finish paying the loan off by August 2016. Okay. Now, the financial intelligence comes from the point of view that once they grasp these very, very basics, you want to start showing them how you can actually make a difference by just understanding a couple of the really, really basic things. So that's the time when we start looking at what were the variables that made the sum. So in this particular case, your annual interest rate was 16%, and you took the loan out over 36 months, and you're not going to have a balloon payment. What do they call it in Europe and America? Is it also a balloon payment? What it means is you have a loan for 36 months for your car, and then after 36 months, you have to make in cash the payment of another 50%. So it sounds very attractive, you're going to pay very little, and now 3 years down the road, it's the end of your loan, and people are, the finance house expects you to make this balloon payment, this once-off bullet, I think, in financial terms. So this happens more and more and more in South Africa because everybody wants to drive a BMW. So now the finance houses are starting to offer 75% balloons or 80% balloons. So it looks to you like it's really affordable, and come the end of the 3 years, there you have a vehicle that is not yours. You have an 80% commitment to pay in cash, which of course they can't pay. So what do you do now? Now you start going to the bank and getting a personal loan. What happens now? Now you have a personal loan which you also can't pay. So now you start going to the microlenders and you start getting a microloan. And this is what we're trying to illustrate to them, is that as your interest rates go up and up and up, because first, you had good credit, so you got a loan at 8%, which is currently our prime rate. After your balloon payment, people are saying, no, hang on, you obviously didn't have the cash to settle, so we're going to increase your interest rate to 12. And by the time you land up with the micro-lenders, it is legal in South Africa to have an interest rate of up to 36%. And that is one of the reasons why 5 out of 7 businesses fail. Because as they continue borrowing and borrowing, the interest rates just go up. So this is just a little illustration. That'll show them that if we can reduce the annual interest rate to 8%, there you go, there's the reduction now. And you can see how much influence this is going to have on your cash flow. There we go. So now we're down to, see if this one works, yeah. So now we're down to only a shortage of 16 instead of 35. Okay, I'm just going to illustrate one more thing here, and then I'll play you a short video of how we actually teach them that making one small change to your finance at a time can really start improving your cash flow. So the last thing I wanted to show from here is how once you start getting smart, you can now start adding more and more and more scenarios. So I have this scenario where I'm going to pay myself 20,000, and I'm going to have somebody working for me who is obviously my younger brother, because as you can see, I'm not going to pay much. So I can now say, right, I want to create another scenario. And this scenario will start as a duplicate of my first scenario. So there we have the two scenarios now, the default scenario and scenario 2. So in scenario 2, I'm looking at giving myself an increase in January. And I'm also considering in the new year to employ a second person. Yes, I'm just adding a second person. Let's call him Joe. And he'll be earning a bit more because he's not family. And he will be a salesman. And I'll promise him an annual increase of 8%. There we go. So you'll notice that as soon as I've added one more element to any question that I'm asking, there's an indicator over there that I now actually have 2 employees. So used to only have 1, and as soon as I get to January, you'll see that I have 2 employees. And I can at any time open up to see the details. So there I have my first employee, who I can give a name to if I want to. So that'll be Mary. And she is my 2IC. And there we have it. So now I can analyze. I've got Mary and Joe as the 2 people working for me. So in my default scenario, there's only 1 monthly paid person. And in my scenario 2, there are 2 people. Okay, so I'm just going to play how much time have I got? Only 10 minutes. Okay, so I'm just going to play you a short video of how we actually do the training.
To get access to the Cashflow Optimizer app for individuals, go to www.riskflow.com/CFO4I. Enter your email address and password and select Login. Select the currency of your choice. Then select No for Enable Future Values. Select Save, then Next. Now you can start to enter your information. We kick off with the balance of your bank account. Then enter the value of the cash in your wallet. Enter the value of your residential property, your vehicle, household effects and furniture, and any other assets that you might have. The values that you use are those that you believe are the realistic current market prices. Once you have completed the information on your assets, click on Next and you will see the Investments page. Enter the current value of the investments that you have, any savings accounts, fixed deposits, shares, unit trusts, retirement fund or annuities, and investment property.
All right, that's enough of the first one. Did you realize that that was our first attempt when we start with the balance sheet? You know, complete all your assets. Then you got to an investment page and the guy saying, you know, what do you mean the shares and unit trusts that I have? So we've tried to make it more and more and more user-friendly, and I think the demo I gave you, you'd see that we just start with a little quick start, and you don't have to know what your director's emoluments are going to be.
Looking at your income statement, balance sheet and cash flow, you may ask, but where are all the figures coming from for the future month and years? Embedded in the app are assumptions that we use to calculate the future values. You can edit these assumptions to reflect what you believe would be applicable to your own circumstances. Let's look at how to do this. Select the personal icon. Move down to enable the future values and select Yes. Click on Save, then Next. Select the folder next to the property value. A drop-down info box will appear with the description of the property and the rate at which it will grow on an annual basis. You can change these assumptions to match your own circumstances. You can also add another property by clicking on Add tab and completing the information. To get out of the detail, simply click on the word property again. Note the number on the folder indicating the total number of properties. These changes to the assumptions and the facility to add items can be done in any month over the 5-year period for any category, be it an asset, investment, debt, income, or expense item. Should you wish to delete any item completely, just click on the dustbin, and all the information for that particular item will be deleted. Another feature. Go to the income statement questions and select expenses. Click on any folder on the groceries line. On the drop-down box you will find a line, Pay Credit Card. This line provides for the amount of groceries that you pay by credit card every month. This facility can be used for any of your expenses. The purpose of this is to calculate...
You get the basic idea. So Andy has waved 5 minutes. My plan worked. If any question is of a technical nature, I refer you to slide 44, where I indicated that the only little bit I know about is how to do the compound interest calculations in APL. Are there any questions? Yes, John.
You're releasing your application on iPhones and iPads.
Yeah.
I wonder if you have to jump through any hoops with Apple to get these things certified, and if so, is it difficult?
It is incredibly difficult. We're deploying both there and on Android. And on Android, it took us 2 days, for them to have gone through everything and approved it. With the Apple devices, we're now in week 3, and it's about the 15th time that they've come back and said, this shouldn't be able to do this, you shouldn't be able to do that. One of the things we battle with most on the Apple Store is that we want to allow people to be able to pay via PayPal, and the Apple guys won't allow that, so we had to go back and change all that part, and therefore allow them from the Apple Store to have a 2-week free trial. And thereafter, they have to actually go onto the website and do the PayPal from there, whereas in Android, you can go directly to PayPal. Incidentally, we decided not to roll out on Blackberries and the Windows Phone. And I was told, where's Thomas? I was told that Microsoft bought Nokia, so we won't be deploying on the Windows Phone for the next short while.
Very nice application.
Thank you.
However, there's another concept in finance, which is, I think, is even more important than cash flow, which is net worth.
Yes. Oh, yeah. I could demo it. It's
Please.
when we get to the balance sheet. That is the bottom line that you saw over there.
But
was your net asset value or your net worth?
what do you measure it in?
Sorry.
What's the what are the units that you measure?
Well,
your
what we
net
did
worth?
is to try and look at the difference between assets and liabilities. So to try and illustrate to you that if you start investing money on assets that grow, for instance, property, rather than assets that depreciate, such as vehicles.
In other words, your units are in currency.
Sorry?
Your units for
Yes.
net worth,
Yes.
currency, but that's
Yes.
not the definition of net worth.
Yes, but we're trying to teach this to banana salesmen.
Right, the definition of net worth is the number of years you can live once
Okay.
you stop working.
No, good point. Very good point. Yes.
So you mentioned the reason businesses are failing is lack of financial literacy. And maybe this is a stupid question, but how much do you think it's related to actual, true ignorance on how much things are going to cost, and how much due to a sort of willful ignorance of how much things are going to cost?
I hear what you're saying. We spoke to one of the development banks, and we asked them to run a 2-day test the waters kind of thing. And we discovered that people really, really do not know that they're going to run into trouble, if they start looking at debt. So it's not a case of somebody saying, oh, what the hell, I've got a loan, let me buy a car. So that was our group of 2,000 that we tested it on. Nothing else.
So when you took something like this, did you see whether their purchasing behaviors, maybe not the right, but did they actually change the behavior of what they were doing when they saw this kind of stuff?
You see, I mean, it's too short, for us to be able to see whether or not in the longer term something happened. But what we did see is that as soon as we start showing them about personal loans and microloans and trying to illustrate exactly how the one loan is going to get you into trouble with the second loan and the third loan, you could really see the lights go on, and people realizing maybe if I try and settle things in cash, then coming the next year, my position will improve.
I just noticed that the data is available on the cloud.
Yes.
So I was concerned about privacy questions and security, number one.
Yes.
And then the second question is, with financial institutions or others who might be interested in getting a message to your customers, what about advertising? Is that going to be possible?
We tried very hard to convince the banks, that we can white label it and this can become, the standard bank app. The problem is that what the app demos is exactly how bad it is to get into debt. So the banks didn't really like the fact that we were demoing settle your loan and live on cash, and that'll go away. So we had a very thank you but no thank you attitude from the finance houses.
I think the time is up.
Okay.
So thank you very much.